¿Qué onda, vatos? Thanks again for tuning in to yet another video. Infamous coming at you live from the West Coast yet again, San Jose, California. So let's go ahead and talk about the Indian Challenger. Now that we've seen what Harley has brought to the table in 2024, very impressive, good-looking bike. I'm not a big fan of the fairing, but you know, that's it. It's preference thing. A lot of you guys, I've posted community posts. You guys seem to like the new redesigned shark nose fairing. You guys, you know, I guess you guys like it. Some of you guys are still growing into it. You guys could take a look at it. It looks good. New saddlebags, new design, new tank, new fairing, a lot of different features. So should the Indian Challenger be worried about, you know, this new bike? Of course, if you guys seen my last year's video, I've pretty much compared the CVO to the Challenger. A lot of the features that the Challenger has, that's standard, that's stuff, those are features and stuff that you see in the CVO. Okay, remember the Challenger had full LEDs. Harley has now finally adapted full LEDs. You have LEDs, and now you have LEDs in the back. So Harley has finally done that, of course. But I mean, the Challenger still has, like I said, I was comparing the Challenger to the CVO, and that's still pretty much, you know, the case. All right. I mean, yes, Harley has done quite a bit to these, you know, to these touring models. But I think it really comes down to where your preferences are for your riding style and what you're looking to get out of the bike. Like I mentioned, the Challenger is still, I mean, and this is just the basic, you know, this is 26,500. The 2024 touring models, their MSRP is 26,000. For an additional $500. You are still getting, you know, a significant amount of features and you know, components. All right, so this is, of course, a liquid cooled, like a true liquid cooled engine from Indian. Of course, this is their Power Plus engine. This is overhead cams. When you're looking at the Harley-Davidson, these are push rods. Okay, so the cam sits underneath on the bottom end, and then of course it uses push rods to, you know, move the valves, you know, in the heads. All right, that's the main difference when it comes to these engine designs. And there's still a lot of flaws in this engine design. All right, guys, it is what it is. This is all technology. It's not efficient. You know, it's just, you know, things like that. Okay, in the Power Plus, of course, you have the cams on the heads, and it's a little bit more, you know, it's a little bit more responsive. And because of the actual cooling in the Power Plus, you could, you know, push, of course, higher revs out of it, RPM. And like I said, the Road Glide did add cooling, but this is just in the heads. All right, your cooling comes in through your rear cylinder, and then it passes through and it goes into the front, and then of course that goes back underneath into your cooler or your radiator. It goes into your radiator, and then of course that cools down, and then it pushes back up, and it just circulates like so. On the Power Plus, it's the whole engine. Everything gets cooled. Everything's liquid cooled. All right, and of course that would mean you know, it's gonna have a larger radiator. You guys can see the size of this thing. Okay, that's huge. That's the radiator. Of course, you can see the fins there. It does have fins, and I guess it does provide a little bit of the cooling, but you can see that you don't have, of course, push rods. I mean, the overall design of the Power Plus, you can see that it has, I mean, it's got some design where it pays homage to the push rods. You can see it's got two little lines right here on both sides, so it's paying homage to the classic design. I mean, the Power Plus looks fantastic. It's a good looking engine, left and right. You guys can take a look at it. The engine looks great. But anyways, getting back on topic, and not to ramble too much and not to make this video too long, but you still have, of course, you can see you have the inverted forks on the Challenger. You don't have that on the on the Road Glide or on the Street Glide. You have that on the CVO. So you still have inverted forks. You have better suspension on the Challenger. You also have more performance on the Challenger. We're looking at 126 horsepower at 120 foot-pounds of torque. On the Road Glide, it's got 105 horsepower. I can't remember what is the performance on this. It's 100 and performance. Yeah, it's 105 horsepower, and it's got 130 foot-pounds of torque. So, I mean, the Power Plus is a little bit more balanced. It's got 122 horsepower, and I believe it's got 128 foot-pounds of torque. Guys, that's still very impressive compared to this, right? It's shy 2 foot-pounds of torque, but you're making up, all that. I mean, we're talking about an additional 20 horsepower on the Challenger. Not to mention, this thing weighs in at 796 pounds. All right, how much does the Road Glide weigh in? It weighs in at 838 pounds. It's still 40 pounds heavier, and it's 20 horsepower. It has less performance. So it's not only is it heavier, the Road Glide, it's also it's not the same when it comes to the performance and the handling, because it's got the inverted forks. You guys can let me know in the comments what you guys think. Of course, they're both good looking bikes. I think between the Road Glide and the Challenger, on how ugly the fairing is, I would have to give it to the Challenger. I think the Challenger fairing is a little bit more hideous than the new shark nose fairing on the Road Glide. Anyways, like I said, you guys can make up your minds which one would you guys prefer. I think the Road Glide looks slightly better, even with, of course, just the overall design. I really like the new saddlebags on the Road Glide. You guys can see that on the back over here on the Challenger. I think it looks a little bit better. I like the dash on the Road Glide. I think I like the fuel tank, the new shape of the fuel tank on the Road Glide. They're both 6-gallon tanks. It's just, I think when it comes to the performance and the handling, I've test ridden the Challenger quite a few times. I've test ridden the Challenger, the Elite, the Dark Horse, the Pursuit, and then the Pursuit Dark Horse, if they have that. I believe they do. I've test ridden these bikes multiple times. The seat on this thing is very comfortable. It handles great. Like I said, you can really feel how light the bike is when it comes to the 40 pounds, and the engineering on the Indian, I believe, is slightly better. I was able to get this off of the kickstand a lot easier than you can compared to Harley's touring models. The 2024 is still the same frame. Like I said, the only thing that they've really improved, of course, is the suspension. I mean, the rake is still the same. The weight, yes, it's a little bit less, but of course the Challenger is still lighter. I think as far as handling, it's gonna feel about the same, because of, like I said, it's still the same frame, still the same powertrain. Yes, it's a 117, but I've test ridden multiple 114s. But I mean, we'll see. I have yet to test ride the 117 liquid cooled Road Glide, the 2024s. But you guys, like I said, the Indian Challenger still has quite a bit to offer. Still looks good for the price, $26,000. Yes, the Road Glide does have maybe a little bit more rider safety enhancements compared to the Challenger, because they've added the RDRS in the 2024s. But you still have, of course, you have the power the power windshield. I think the wheels on the Challenger still look better than the new 2024s. I really like the way these look. Like I said, that's a preference thing. And of course, you have the liquid cooled, so it's going to be running a little bit cooler than the 2024s, the 117 with the liquid cooled heads. This engine's just going to run a little bit cooler, so that might be a little bit more comfortable. Like I said, I mean, just it comes down to preference. Do you want the performance, the handling, and the suspension like that you get on the Challenger, or do you want the larger TFT display? Like I said, you have the smaller TFT display on this. You have the 12-inch TFT display on the new Challenger. I don't know. I mean, they're just completely different bikes. You guys can let me know in the comments. What do you guys think? Would you guys lean towards the Challenger, or would you guys lean towards the Road Glide? Okay. Now let's talk about, since we're on a topic of the performance, the differences. Of course, I got to add one more thing. I'm not trying to make this video too long, but as far as the performance out of factory, straight from the factory on Indian is better. Okay, hands down, it's a better option. But you have more potential with the Harley-Davidson. Okay, so this engine has been out since 2017. You have more aftermarket support. You have more cams. You have stage 2s. You have 131s, 128s. You have kits. You might even be able to fit a 135 in this. So you have the 135 kit. You have a 131, 120. And I mean, the performance is pretty much unlimited when it comes to the Milwaukee 8. You have the stage 2. Depending on what cam you put in it, you could push out 140 horsepower. I might be over-exaggerating. Maybe 130 horsepower and 140 foot-pounds of torque, depending on the cam and the ejectors and the intake manifold. Depending on those things, of course, you could push out those numbers at the wheel. Okay, these are at the wheel. These are not, from Harley-Davidson on the engine. This is at the wheel. So between the engine performance and at the wheel performance, they're completely different things, because you do lose some of the performance in the drivetrain. So you have, of course, a belt. If you have a chain, so it's a little bit more responsive. The belt, it's got some slack in it, so you're losing, some performance between the powertrain and at the wheel. So this is why I'm saying, that's a huge, difference when we're talking about dyno numbers at the wheel and on what Harley-Davidson and what Challenger they advertise. Okay, so yes, you see 130 foot-pounds of torque and 105 horsepower at the wheel. I mean, that's not, those are not accurate at the wheel. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. Just one more last point, of course. This is, of course, a overhead cam liquid-cooled engine, so it's going to perform different. The air-cooled V-twin, we know Harley-Davidson loves that low-end performance, that low-end torque. That's what these air-cooled, V-twins are known for. And then as far as the Challenger, of course, it has a different, it's just different when it comes to the performance. That peak horsepower could be at maybe 6,000 RPM. It's just, they have different revs because of, like I mentioned, the design. Push rod. This is a push rod, and then on the Challenger you have overhead cam. So you guys leave your comments down below. Let me know what you guys think. Let's risk it out there and ride. Later.